The crystal chandeliers of the Magnolia Grand Hotel shook with applause as cameras flashed and a saxophone crooned over the murmuring crowd. Gold banners read, "Adewale Global, New Era." At the center of the ballroom, Marcus stood on the small stage in a sharp navy suit, his smile wide and practiced. He looked like a man tasting success for the first time and pretending it was always his. Beside him stood Chief Adewale, silver-bearded, regal, a Nigerian tycoon whose name carried weight in Lagos, Atlanta, and beyond. Ayana watched from the edge of the crowd, hands clenched around a clutch bag she didn't remember picking up. Her heart thumped slow and heavy, like she was underwater. Marcus didn't look for her in the sea of faces. He didn't need to. He had rehearsed this next move without her. Adewale tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, voice warm as palm wine and cool as steel, "tonight we celebrate loyalty, vision, courage." Marcus adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and smiled at a woman in a champagne dress who hadn't left his side all evening. Vanessa, the boss's head of PR, the one who had taught Marcus how to smile for cameras and how to forget the hands that held him up before there were cameras at all. "First," Marcus said, "I want to thank Chief Adewale. He showed me what excellence looks like. He took me in, guided me, and treated me like a son." Ayana's breath caught. Like a son? Since when? "And second," Marcus said, throat tight but voice sure, "I want to be transparent about my future. I can't be weighed down by people who don't understand the cost of ambition, so I'm making a clean break." There was a hush. He didn't have to say her name. Everyone who mattered knew. The crowd parted like expensive water, and eyes slid toward Ayana as if pulled by an invisible string. Marcus lifted his chin. "Ayana, thank you for your time. But I have to choose the path that matches my destiny." He set the mic down, turned to Vanessa, and slid an arm around her waist as if he'd done it 1,000 times in secret. Ayana felt the floor tilt, the trumpet's soft moan cutting like a blade. She didn't cry. Not here. Not for them. Then came the line that split the room in two. Chief Adewale lifted his glass and said, "Tonight, we also announce a change in leadership, one that will shock you." The band went silent. The cameras leaned closer. Marcus's smile sharpened, hungry. He thought this was his entrance, his coronations. He thought the world had arranged itself like a bouquet at his feet. Adewale raised an envelope sealed with crimson wax. "A letter opened only upon my command. It names the person who will inherit controlling interest in Adewale Global." Marcus straightened his tie, smooth and slick. Vanessa squeezed his arm. Somewhere near the back, a woman in a blue jail turned her phone to record. Chief Adewale broke the wax with one slow press of his thumb. "A moment," he said, eyes scanning the crowd, and for the first time that night his gaze locked with Ayana's. He nodded, small, careful, like a secret handshake. The crowd took a collective breath. "Before I reveal the name," Adewale said, "let me tell you a story." The room exhaled in disappointment. Marcus's jaw twitched, but the chief folded the letter closed and stepped away from the mic. A story about identity, about promises kept in the dark. Ayana's pulse thudded in her ears. She didn't know how she knew, but she knew the story was about her. "Meet me in the anteroom," a low voice said near her shoulder. A woman, short braids, gray suit, eyes that missed nothing, had glided up without a sound. She pressed a business card into Ayana's palm. On it, Doris Nwankwo, ESQ, Family Council. Ayana stared at the door to the anteroom, then at the stage where Marcus preened under a ring of light that did not belong to him. She slipped through the crowd, past the soft hiss of whispered guesses and the clink of crystal, into a quiet hallway that smelled faintly of citrus and old money. Inside the anteroom, a mahogany table sat under a portrait of a woman wearing a jewel that matched the night sky. Doris closed the door behind them. I represent Chief Adewale, she said. More accurately, I represent a promise he made to someone who mattered. I don't understand, Ayana said, her voice steadying out of stubbornness. Why did he look at me like that? Doris's eyes softened. Because you were always meant to hear this first. Ayana's mind flashed back. Years of clipped coupons, part-time shifts, Marcus whispering late-night plans in a one-bedroom apartment off Cascade Road, them dreaming of a life where bills didn't bounce and hope didn't cost so much. She had carried him when he had nothing, cheered when the Adewale internship came, prayed when the long nights started. She had cooked jollof on Sundays and saved her last bite for him, and when he began to glow with borrowed light, she had stood in the shadows and clapped. Doris laid a folder on the table. Chief Adewale is not your benefactor, she said. He is your guardian, quietly, legally, for years. The word landed like a key in an old lock. Guardian? Ayana whispered. Your mother, Leah Parker, Doris said. She lived in Houston for a time, yes? She passed when you were 19. Ayana swallowed hard. Leah, my mom worked 2 jobs. She never told you who your father was, Doris finished. Because she wanted you to grow without weight on your shoulders. But she left a letter with my office. If anything happened to her, we were to watch over you until you were strong enough not to notice the watching. Ayana sat slowly. The carpet seemed to lift under her feet. Who is my father? Doris took a breath that carried years. His name is Afolabi Adewale. The room narrowed, the portrait above them fading into a dark blur. Ayana heard the distant hum of the ballroom, a laugh, a gasp, the pop of a cork, and for a second she was a child again, tracing the lines in her mother's tired hands. You're saying, her voice broke, then rebuilt itself. You're saying Chief Adewale is my grandfather? Doris nodded. And the company that young man is dancing for? She tipped her head toward the muffled music. He's dancing under your ceiling. Ayana gripped the edge of the table. Anger bubbled up, hot and clean. Not at the old man who hid and watched, maybe out of fear or pride. Not at her mother who kept the secret so Ayana could be loved for herself, not for her name. The anger sharpened at Marcus. The way he had peeled away from her like her life was old paint. The way he held another woman in public minutes after cutting her loose. The way he bowed toward a throne that wasn't his. Why now? Ayana asked. Why tell me tonight? Because the will demands it, Doris said. Because a child should not stand outside her own door. A knock sounded. The door swung open without waiting. Chief Adewale stepped in, the silver in his beard catching light like frost. He closed the door and leaned on his cane. For a breath, he simply looked at Ayana. Really looked. Regret and pride flickered across his face like passing clouds. He spoke softly. When your mother left, I failed her. I told myself I was protecting you from the world that follows my name. Maybe I was protecting myself from guilt. But I promised that when you were ready, the truth would find you. Tonight, my board needs a leader who remembers where we came from, someone who knows what hunger is and what kindness costs. Ayana felt something steady, old, rise inside her. And the letter? Adewale held it up. It names you, Ayana Parker, by your mother's name and by mine. Her breath stuttered. In the ballroom, someone started a chant, speech, speech, and the sound swelled like a tide. Are you asking me to forgive you? She asked. I am asking you to take what is yours, he said. On the other side of the wall, Marcus laughed, the sharp sound carrying through the vents. Ayana pictured his hand on Vanessa's waist, his smile like a polished blade. She stood. What happens if I say yes? She asked. Doris opened the door a crack, the ball of sound rolling into the anteroom. Then we walk back in, and your name becomes a headline. Adewale's eyes glimmered. And a homecoming. Ayana stepped toward the door, then stopped. "One condition," she said, turning back to them. "I will not be a pity project. I'll work. I'll learn. But when I stand on that stage, I want it to be because my mother's grit lives in me, not because a man with a cane can still pull strings." Adewale's mouth curved, a tired, grateful smile. "Spoken like a leader." They moved into the hallway, the gold light spilling across the carpet. Ayana could feel her heart slowing, beat by determined beat. Every corridor she had walked, every bus she had caught at dawn, every tip counted twice, every bill paid late but paid, threaded together into a rope she could climb. At the ballroom door, Doris squeezed her shoulder. "Ready?" Ayana nodded. "Open it." The doors swung wide. The room turned as one body. The music died. Chief Adewale took the mic again, the red-sealed letter open in his hand. "As I was saying," he thundered, a smile barely contained, "tonight I announce the rightful heir to Adewale Global." Marcus drifted forward, chest lifted, eyes shining. Vanessa's nails fluttered like flags. Adewale's voice filled the crystal vault of the hall. "The new majority owner is—" The crowd leaned in, breath held, phones raised, lights blazed. Adewale paused, his gaze falling on Ayana as she stepped into the light. And then, from the back of the room, a man in a charcoal suit rushed toward the stage, pushing through chairs, waving frantically. "Stop!" he shouted. "There's a problem with the will, something none of you saw." The room gasped. Ayana froze mid-step, the future hanging above her like a dropped chandelier, glittering and about to fall. The room froze mid-breath as the man stormed toward the stage, his footsteps echoing sharply against the marble floor. Chief Adewale's brows furrowed. The man, sweating through his suit, stopped just short of the microphone, gasping for air. "Chief, please," he said, clutching a file in his hand. "Don't announce it yet. You need to see this." Murmurs swept across the hall like a wind through dry grass. Cameras tilted. Vanessa glanced nervously at Marcus, who stiffened, his confident smile faltering. Ayana stood just beyond the threshold, half in shadow, watching everything. Chief Adewale's voice cut through the noise. "And who are you?" "Sir, my name is Bamidele. I'm the company's internal auditor. I was asked to recheck some archives this afternoon, and I found documents, confidential ones, altered and re-signed in your name." Adewale's eyes narrowed. "Altered?" "Yes, sir," Bamidele said, his voice shaking. "The signature granting 51% control to the temporary manager. It wasn't yours. Someone forged it." The crowd gasped. Journalists raised phones. Security whispered into radios. Marcus's heart began to hammer. "That's ridiculous," he blurted out, laughing too loud. "Who would do that? This man is lying." Bamidele turned, thrusting the file toward the chief. "Sir, your thumbprint was digitally cloned. I traced it through the system logs. The authorization came from within, using Mr. Marcus's ID." A ripple of shock spread. Vanessa stepped back as though the accusation were contagious. Marcus's voice cracked. "He's lying. That's not— Chief, you know me. I would never—" Adewale's hand shot up. The band stopped. Even the waiters froze mid-pour. He took the file, adjusted his glasses, and flipped through the pages. Every eye followed his movements. When he looked up again, the air in the room was sharp enough to cut. "I taught you that loyalty builds empires," he said slowly. "And this is what you built for me in return?" Marcus stumbled forward. Sir, please. I only did what was necessary to prove myself. You weren't sure about me. I just wanted to show initiative." "By stealing?" Adewale asked, voice low but dangerous. "I was going to fix it later," Marcus shouted. I needed control to execute the merger deal. Vanessa said—" He stopped himself, but it was too late. All heads swiveled toward Vanessa, her face drained of color. "Don't bring me into this," she hissed, grabbing her purse. "Enough!" Chief Adewale's cane struck the floor with a thunderous crack. "Security!" Two men in black suits stepped forward. Marcus's protest died in his throat as they closed in. Ayana finally moved. The crowd turned as she stepped fully into the light. Her calm presence seemed to pull every gaze toward her. Chief Adewale's expression softened for the first time that night. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, "before we continue, let me introduce the one person whose name cannot be erased, whose right cannot be forged. My granddaughter, Ayana Parker Adewale." The words rippled through the room like thunder rolling over a valley. Marcus froze, his mind unable to process the syllables. Granddaughter? A gasp escaped Vanessa's lips. The photographers went wild, flashes igniting across the ballroom as Ayana mounted the steps slowly, head high, every movement quiet and deliberate. She stopped beside Chief Adewale and turned toward the sea of astonished faces. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady. "My mother was Leah Parker, and though she never wore diamonds or owned shares, she raised me with something no one here can forge: integrity." The audience broke into hushed murmurs. Chief Adewale smiled faintly, placing a proud hand on her shoulder. "Tonight," he said, lifting the letter, "I fulfill a promise made long ago. This company, Adewale Global, belongs to her. From this day forward, she inherits full ownership and leadership privileges." Marcus's knees weakened. "Ayana?" he whispered, disbelief clouding his face. "You? You're related to him?" Ayana met his eyes, her tone cold. "You left me for his approval, Marcus. You betrayed love for ambition. You just didn't know ambition lives in my bloodline." Adewale handed her the microphone. She took it, her fingers trembling slightly but her eyes burning with quiet fire. "I don't intend to shame anyone here tonight," she said, "but I do believe actions reveal character. Some people chase wealth thinking it'll make them powerful, but true power is knowing who you are when no one is watching." Her gaze locked with Marcus's, sharp and unblinking. "I saw you when no one was watching." The crowd reacted with murmurs of admiration and disbelief. Adewale turned to security. "Escort Mr. Marcus to the office until further notice." Marcus panicked. "Chief, please. I can explain. Ayana, you can't let them. I did everything for us." Ayana's voice was steady as she spoke the final words of the night. "You did everything for yourself." The guards took his arms, leading him away as flashes continued to spark. Vanessa slipped quietly toward the exit, her heels clicking fast. When the doors shut behind Marcus, Ayana turned back to the audience, breathing deeply. Her heart raced, but inside, something settled, an old wound stitching itself closed. Chief Adewale raised his glass. "To the new dawn!" The hall erupted into applause, though beneath it all, Ayana could feel the quiet chaos brewing beneath the surface. Her inheritance was now public knowledge, and with it, new enemies would surely rise. As the music resumed and guests swarmed to congratulate her, Doris leaned close and whispered, "Be careful. The deeper the roots of power, the darker the soil beneath." Ayana smiled faintly, though her eyes stayed on the crowd where a few unfamiliar faces watched her too intently. One in particular, a tall man near the exit, wearing a gray agbada and a knowing smile, tapped his phone, then disappeared into the night. A strange chill brushed her skin. Something told her this wasn't over. The night air outside the Magnolia Grand Hotel was heavy with moisture, the kind that clung to your skin and whispered secrets through the leaves. The celebration inside raged on. Music, laughter, champagne flutes. But Ayana slipped away quietly through the side exit, heels clicking against the polished walkway. The inheritance announcement had gone viral within an hour. Her name was already trending across social media. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt watched. A soft voice broke her thoughts. "Miss Ayana Parker Adewale." She turned sharply. A man stepped out from the shadows near the palm trees. He was the same one she'd noticed earlier, tall, dark-skinned, mid-30s, in a crisp gray agbada that seemed out of place for someone standing in the dark. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried a strange familiarity. "Who are you?" she asked, instinctively clutching her purse. "My name is Damilola," he said with a half-smile. "But most people in this business know me as Chief Adewale's fixer." "Fixer?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, I handle the quiet problems before they become loud ones." Ayana frowned. "And what problem do you think I am?" "Not you," Damilola said, taking a step closer. "But the people who'll come for you now. The ones Marcus worked for, they won't take this lightly." Ayana's pulse quickened. "What are you talking about?" Damilola glanced around, lowering his voice. "The forged documents Marcus submitted weren't just his idea. There's a bigger hand behind it, a foreign investor who's been trying to seize partial control of Adewale Global for years. Marcus was just a pawn. You inherited a company tangled in debts, fake contracts, and enemies with deep pockets." Ayana swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" He smiled faintly. "Now you learn fast, or they'll destroy everything before you even start." The next morning, the world woke up to chaos. Every major business outlet carried the headline, "Secret Heir to Adewale Empire Revealed, Scandal, Betrayal, and Forgery Allegations, Rock Billion-Dollar Company." Ayana sat in her grandfather's study, staring at the endless phone calls lighting up the screen. Chief Adewale leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "They smell blood," he said. Doris entered, setting down 2 files. "They've already frozen one of the company's offshore accounts. The board is demanding an emergency session by noon." Ayana stood. "Then we'll give them one. I won't hide." Adewale looked at her, a faint smile touching his lips. "Your mother would have been proud. You sound just like her." She met his eyes. "I don't want pride, Grandpa. I want control." Later that day, the boardroom was a storm of whispers and disapproval. 17 men and women sat around a long glass table, their faces drawn tight with suspicion. Some were Nigerian, others foreign partners from the United States and South Africa. When Ayana entered, the murmuring stopped. She wore a navy blue suit, her hair neatly pulled back. She carried no notes, no assistants, just conviction. One of the older directors, Mr. Bello, adjusted his glasses. "Miss Ayana, you're young. This company isn't a charity. We need experienced leadership, not emotional claims." Another man added, "How do we even know you can handle such a position? You have no business record, no corporate background." Ayana clasped her hands, calm. "You're right. I'm young, but this company was built on my family's name and my mother's legacy. I may not have a degree in finance, but I know what integrity looks like, and lately, Adewale Global hasn't shown much of it." Her words cut through the air. A few heads turned. Chief Adewale smiled faintly. Ayana continued. "Marcus forged documents, and none of you noticed. You signed off on deals you didn't read, and you're questioning my ability?" The room fell silent. She picked up one of the files Doris had handed her earlier and opened it. "I've already contacted the authorities and frozen every pending transaction related to the stolen accounts. The investigator Bamidele will be working directly under my supervision. From today, transparency will no longer be optional." A murmur rippled around the table. Mr. Bello leaned forward. "You've been CEO for less than 24 hours. You're making enemies fast." Ayana smiled. "Then I must be doing something right." That night, Ayana returned to her new office, the same one Marcus once envied. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the lights of Lagos shimmer like 1,000 restless dreams. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of power pressing gently against her shoulders. Her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown. Number. "You're not ready for the war you just inherited." Her blood ran cold. She looked outside. Across the street, a car idled with its lights off. Before she could react, the phone buzzed again. Unknown. Number. Ask your grandfather what really happened to your mother before you celebrate too much. Ayanna froze. Her mother's death had always been explained as an illness, but the tone of that message, it was mocking, deliberate. She dialed the number. No answer. Just static. Then, click. The line went dead. She turned from the window, her reflection staring back at her with new fear. At that moment, the door opened behind her. Chief Adewale entered quietly, his expression unreadable. "Grandpa," she said softly, "there's something I need to ask you." He paused mid-step. "What is it, my dear?" Her voice trembled. "What really happened to my mother?" He hesitated, just long enough for her to notice. And that hesitation told her everything. He was hiding something. The silence between Ayanna and her grandfather stretched like a drawn bowstring. Outside the office window, the hum of Lagos nightlife carried faintly, the honking of distant cars, laughter from rooftop lounges, the soft hum of a restless city. But inside, the air was heavy. Chief Adewale finally walked toward the window, his cane tapping softly against the marble floor. He didn't look at her when he spoke. "Your mother, Leah, she was the brightest soul I ever knew. But she was also stubborn, too much like me." Ayanna folded her arms. "That's not an answer." He sighed. "When she was younger, she fell in love with a man I couldn't trust. A man who wanted this company for himself. I warned her, but she wouldn't listen. When she got pregnant with you, he vanished. Months later, she left too. Ran to the US, refused to take a dime from me. Said she didn't want you growing up under the shadow of power." Ayanna's voice softened. "So she left everything behind?" "Yes," he said, finally turning to face her. "But what you were told about her death, it wasn't the full truth." Ayanna's stomach nodded. "What do you mean?" "She didn't die from illness," Adewale said quietly. "She was poisoned." Ayanna froze. "Poisoned?" He nodded slowly. "The doctors never wrote it publicly, but we knew. Someone laced her medication with a slow toxin. By the time she was diagnosed, it was too late. She called me once, days before she died. Said she feared someone was watching her. I sent help, but they were too late." Her mind spun. "Do you know who did it?" Adewale hesitated again, his eyes clouded with years of regret. "We had suspects, but nothing concrete. One of the names resurfaced in the company 3 years ago. I thought it was coincidence. Now, I'm not so sure." "Who?" Ayanna demanded. "Damilola," he said at last. "My fixer." Ayanna's pulse roared in her ears. "Damilola? The man who warned me last night?" "He's a loyal employee," Adewale said slowly. "But he's also dangerous. He's worked for both sides before, ours and our rivals. He's a survivor, not a saint. If he's come to you, it means someone's pulling strings again." Ayanna's thoughts raced back to the text message from the unknown number. "Ask your grandfather what really happened to your mother. What if Damilola wasn't warning her, but manipulating her?" Before she could respond, Doris entered briskly, holding a stack of documents. "Sir, we have a problem," she said, her tone urgent. "One of the secured warehouses has been broken into. Sensitive company files are missing, physical contracts, not digital." Adewale's face hardened. "Which warehouse?" "The one in Marina District. And the security cameras were disabled exactly 30 minutes before the breach." Ayanna's blood ran cold. Who has access to those files? Doris exhaled. "Aside from the board and you, only Marcus and Damilola." Later that night, Ayana drove herself to the Marina District warehouse. The area was quiet except for the hum of streetlights and the occasional bark of a stray dog. She stepped out of her car, the heels of her shoes echoing sharply on the concrete. The massive metal doors of the warehouse hung open. Inside, the air smelled of dust and burnt paper. Flashlights from police officers danced across the walls, revealing overturned boxes and scattered documents. Bamidele, the internal auditor, met her at the entrance. "Miss Ayana, thank you for coming. We found something strange." He led her deeper into the warehouse. On one of the desks lay a crumpled envelope with her name written on it, in her mother's handwriting. Ayana's breath hitched. "Where did you find this?" "In a locked cabinet behind false backing," Bamidele said. "Whoever broke in didn't take it. Maybe they didn't see it." Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. The envelope was old, yellowed at the edges. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. "My dearest Ayana, if you are reading this, it means the truth has finally reached you. There are people in your grandfather's circle who would do anything to silence our bloodline. Never trust anyone who smiles too easily around power. I left clues, documents in the place where I met your father for the last time. You'll know it by the white hibiscus near the sea." Ayana's chest tightened. The place near the sea. Her mother's old note had mentioned something similar in a forgotten diary. Could it be the old family villa by Tarqua Bay? Before she could process further, a flashlight beam caught her in the face. "Miss Ayana!" "Step back!" one of the guards shouted. "What's happening?" she asked. "We just found a hidden device under your car." She turned sharply. The guards rushed toward the parking area. Moments later, a loud metallic clink echoed. Then a muffled explosion rocked the ground. The impact threw Ayana to her knees, smoke rising in the distance. Her car was gone. "Are you hurt?" Bamidele shouted, pulling her up. "I'm fine," she gasped, her heart pounding. "But someone just tried to kill me." As the smoke settled, Ayana's phone vibrated. Another text. "Unknown. Number. You're asking the wrong questions. The truth isn't at the sea. It's sitting beside you." She looked up at Bamidele, his face pale in the dim light. Her mind raced. "Beside me?" Before she could speak, police sirens pierced the air, and among the flashing red and blue lights, she saw a familiar figure standing at the far end of the street, Damalola. He raised a hand in greeting, that same calm smile on his face. Then, before the officers could approach, he slipped into a black SUV and vanished into the night. Ayana barely slept that night. The sound of the explosion replayed in her head, the flash of orange, the smell of burning metal, the way her heart had stopped for those few seconds. By morning, the police had surrounded the entire block, labeling it an industrial accident. But Ayana knew better. Someone wanted her gone, someone who feared what she might discover next. In Chief Adewale's mansion, the atmosphere was tense. The guards doubled, every call screened. Doris paced the sitting room, her phone pressed to her ear, whispering updates to the company's legal team. Ayana sat on the sofa, staring blankly at the framed photos of her late mother on the wall. Chief Adewale entered quietly, leaning heavier on his cane than usual. "They said it was a car malfunction," he began. She looked up, eyes burning. "You don't believe that, do you?" He sighed. "No, but believing otherwise means accepting that someone within our own house wants blood." Ayana stood, voice trembling but sharp. "Then let's stop pretending. This family's name, this company, someone's using both as shields for something darker, and I'm done playing blind." Chief Adewale's face tightened. "You're brave, Ayana, but bravery without strategy is suicide." "I'm not afraid of dying," she said. "I'm afraid of dying without knowing why." There was a long pause. Then Doris entered, lowering her phone. "We have a lead." The police traced a purchase record for the explosive device. It was bought under a false company name, A2 Holdings. Chief Adewale's eyes widened. That's one of our shell subsidiaries. Doris nodded grimly. Yes, and the authorization signature on the purchase order matches yours. He froze. That's impossible. It's not your writing, Doris said softly, but it's your signature. Whoever did this had access to your private security key. Ayana's voice dropped. So they're not just coming for me. They're trying to destroy you, too. Chief Adewale sank slowly into a chair. My enemies are old, Ayana. Some of them have been waiting decades for this moment. When you inherited the company, you didn't just inherit wealth. You inherited my wars. Ayana clenched her fists. Then let me fight them. Later that afternoon, Ayana insisted on going to the villa by Tarqua Bay, the place her mother's letter mentioned. The police wanted her to stay put, but she refused. If they wanted me dead, she told Doris, they've already tried. Hiding won't stop them. The drive took nearly 2 hours. The sea breeze met them before the villa came into view, a pale stone structure overlooking the ocean, half covered in vines and thyme. The gates creaked as they entered. This place feels forgotten, Doris murmured. It was my mother's last sanctuary, Ayana replied. She used to bring me here when I was little. Said it was the only place she felt free. They entered the house. Dust danced in shafts of sunlight. The air smelled faintly of salt and memory. On the wall hung a faded painting of a white hibiscus, the one her mother mentioned. Beneath it, Ayana noticed a small latch on the wooden floor. Her pulse quickened. She knelt and pulled. The latch opened to reveal a narrow compartment containing a tin box wrapped in cloth. Inside were several documents, a flash drive, and an old photo. Ayana lifted the picture first, her mother standing beside a man with sharp eyes and a familiar jawline. He looked like a younger version of Chief Adewale, but different, darker, colder. Who is that? Doris asked, leaning closer. Ayana's voice was barely a whisper. My mother said my father vanished. Could this be him? She unfolded one of the documents. It was a birth certificate. Her own. The father's name read, Akinwale Adewale. Her head snapped up. Grandpa's brother. Doris's eyes widened. Wait, you're saying your father was Chief's brother? That means... Ayana finished for her. Voice shaking. My grandfather's own brother might have killed my mother. Just then, a faint creak came from upstairs. Both women froze. Doris whispered, We're not alone. Ayana set the box down silently and motioned toward the stairs. The wooden steps groaned under her feet as she climbed, heart pounding in her chest. At the end of the hallway, a door stood ajar, the sea wind fluttering its curtains. She pushed it open. Nothing. Just an empty room with a single rocking chair facing the ocean. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown. Number. I told you not to trust those who claim to protect you. Look behind you. Ayana spun around. A shadow moved in the doorway. Tall, familiar. Damilola. He raised his hands slowly. You're safe, he said, voice calm. If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't walk through the front door. Her voice was cold. You were at the warehouse. You disappeared after the explosion. Now you're here. Explain yourself. He sighed. Your mother trusted me once. Before she died, she left me something to protect, those same files you just found. She knew people in this family would kill to bury the truth. Are you saying my grandfather's brother did it? Damilola's eyes darkened. Akinwale wanted control of the empire long before your mother's birth. When she became pregnant, he saw you as a threat, a possible heir. When she refused to give up your identity, he silenced her. Ayana's breath hitched. You're lying. I wish I were, he said quietly. But Akinwale is back in Lagos, and if he learns you've uncovered this, he'll finish what he started. Downstairs, Doris shouted, "Ayana! The police are here!" Damilola stepped closer. "Don't trust them. They're on his payroll." Ayana backed away, torn between panic and rage. "Why should I believe any of this?" He looked at her steadily. "Because I was there the night your mother died, and she died calling your name." Her throat closed. "You were there?" He nodded slowly. "And I've been waiting for the day I could make it right." Before she could reply, heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. Voices shouted, uniformed officers flooding the hallway. Damilola's expression hardened. "They're here for me," he said. "If they catch me, you'll never know the rest." He pressed a flash drive into her hand. "Everything you need is on this. But be careful, your grandfather doesn't know the full truth either. Akinwele's been closer than you think." He turned, smashing through the window and landing in the sand below as officers burst through the door. "Freeze!" one shouted. Ayana hid the flash drive quickly, heart racing. As the police surrounded the area, she looked out the broken window. Damilola was gone. Doris rushed in. "Ayana, are you hurt?" She shook her head, eyes distant. "No, but everything I thought I knew just shattered." Morning bled slowly into the Lagos skyline, orange light rising over the lagoon, soft waves brushing against the shore. But for Ayana, it was not a dawn of peace. She stood by the shattered window of the Tarkwa Bay villa, holding the flash drive Damilola had given her like it was a beating heart. Her reflection in the glass looked older, eyes shadowed, resolve hardening. Doris entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of tea. "The police are still searching for Damilola. They think he's working with a criminal syndicate." Ayana didn't turn. "He risked his life to warn me. Maybe he's not the villain they think." Doris hesitated. "And maybe he's buying your trust so you'll stop asking the wrong questions." Ayana's gaze flicked to the horizon. "Then let's find out which one it is." She plugged the flash drive into her laptop. Folders appeared, encrypted documents, voice memos, and one video file named Leah's Promise, .mp4. Ayana's hands trembled as she clicked play. The screen flickered, revealing her mother, Leah, sitting in a dimly lit room. She looked tired, frail, but her voice, still steady. "If this message reaches you, my daughter, I didn't die of sickness. Someone close to your grandfather made sure of that. He wanted control, and I was in the way." "His name is Akinwale," Ayana gasped softly. "But he wasn't working alone. There was another, a fixer in his pocket. He played both sides. I trusted him once, until I saw him meeting Akinwale in secret." The camera shook slightly as Leah leaned closer, tears welling in her eyes. "Ayana, trust no one who hides behind loyalty. When the time comes, go to the villa. The truth is buried there, but so is danger. And if you see Damilola, remember, he's not who he says he is." The video ended. Ayana sat frozen, the room spinning. She mentioned Damilola," she whispered. Doris frowned. "Then he's been lying all along." Ayana stood abruptly. "Or someone's been rewriting history." Before Doris could respond, Ayana's phone rang. Unknown number again. She hesitated, then answered. "Miss Parker Adewale," a smooth male voice said. "It's been a long time since we spoke." Her blood chilled. "Who is this?" A low chuckle. "Your father." She froze. "Akinwale?" "Yes. You've grown into quite the firebrand," he said, calm and confident. "I must say, I didn't expect you to inherit everything so soon, but fate loves irony, doesn't it?" "What do you want?" He laughed softly. "To finish what I started, but I'm offering you a choice first. Walk away from Adewale Global. Sign over the controlling shares. In return, I'll make sure you live." Ayana's jaw tightened. "And if I refuse?" His tone darkened. "Then you'll die the same way your mother did, slowly, without knowing who to trust. The call cut off. Ayana's heart thundered. She turned to Doris. "He's alive, and he knows where I am." Doris grabbed her phone. "We need to alert security." Before she could finish, the lights flickered. The entire villa plunged into darkness. Ayana's breath caught. "The generator?" "Cut off," Doris whispered, reaching for her flashlight. "He's here." From outside came the crunch of tires on gravel. Headlights swept across the villa walls. Shadows moved. 3 men, armed, their silhouettes clear against the dawn light. Ayana's voice was low, steady. "He's not giving me a choice," Doris whispered. "We need to leave through the back. Now." They crept toward the rear exit, moving as quietly as the wind. But as they reached the door, a voice echoed through the hallway. Smooth, commanding, familiar. "Leaving already, my daughter?" Ayana froze. Akinwale stepped from the shadows, dressed immaculately in a white agbada, his smile sharp as glass. "You look just like your mother," he said softly. Same eyes. Same defiance. Ayana glared. "You murdered her." He tilted his head. "I did what I had to. Leah wanted to expose me, destroy everything we built. You wouldn't understand." "I understand enough," she said. "You killed her for power." He took a slow step forward. "Power isn't the villain, Ayana. Weakness is. She was weak, and now you're standing in my way." Doris moved between them. "Touch her, and you'll regret it." Akinwale's expression barely shifted. He snapped his fingers. 2 of his men appeared instantly, guns drawn. "Careful, counselor," he said. "You're brave, but bravery is only useful when someone remembers your name afterward." Ayana's mind raced. Then her gaze flicked toward the laptop, still open, still recording. Leverage. She straightened slowly. "You think you've won, Uncle? The truth's already out." He smirked. "You underestimate me. I erased your mother's files once. I can erase you too." "Not this time," she said. "Everything you've said is being streamed live to the board's secure network." His smirk faltered. "You're bluffing." Doris lifted her phone, showing the blinking red indicator. "Try us." For the first time, his composure cracked. "End it," he barked to his men. Before the gunman could move, a loud crash came from outside, vehicles screeching to a halt, headlights flooding the villa. Voices shouted, "Police, drop your weapons!" Akinwale's men panicked. One fired a shot, shattering a vase near the door. Doris ducked, pulling Ayana to cover. Chaos erupted, shouts, gunfire, breaking glass. In the chaos, Akinwale fled through the side door, disappearing into the night. When the smoke cleared, the officers entered, guns raised. One of them approached Ayana. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She nodded shakily. "He's gone." The officer lowered his weapon. "We'll find him, ma'am. He won't get far." Ayana sank into a chair, trembling but unbroken. Doris placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it. You faced him." Ayana looked at the shattered window, where the sunrise broke through the smoke. "No," she whispered. "This isn't over. Not until I bring him to justice." She looked down at the laptop, the recording still running. Her mother's last warning echoed in her head. Trust no one who hides behind loyalty. Ayana exhaled, resolve returning. It's time the world knows who Akinwale Adewale really is. The next morning, Lagos woke to breaking news that sent ripples through every major network and social feed. Adewale Empire scandal deepens. Hidden heir survives assassination attempt. Leaked recording exposes family betrayal. Clips of Akinwale's confrontation with Ayana at the villa had already gone viral. His calm confession, the threat, the arrogance, it was all captured on the laptop's live feed before the network cut. Ayana watched the broadcast from her grandfather's mansion. her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The whole world now knew. There was no going back. Chief Adewale sat across from her, silent, grief etched into the lines of his face. "I failed both of you," he said finally, voice hoarse. "Your mother, and now you. I should have ended Akinwale's ambitions long ago." Ayana's eyes softened, but her tone stayed firm. "You didn't fail, Grandpa. You just didn't see what your love blinded you to. But now the truth is out, and I won't let her death be in vain." Doris entered, holding her phone. "Interpol just confirmed it. Akinwale's trying to flee the country. They've issued a warrant. Every exit port is being monitored." Ayana nodded slowly. "Good, because this time he doesn't get to run." Later that day, Ayana stood at the top floor of Adewale Global Headquarters. The city sprawled beneath her, alive, loud, restless. But inside the glass office, everything was still. The board members had gathered again, this time in silence. They had watched the same footage as everyone else. None of them spoke when she entered, wearing a black suit that echoed both mourning and power. She walked to the head of the table and placed a single document before them. Akinwale's confession transcript. "Gentlemen and ladies," she began, her voice steady. "You built this company on deceit and silence. My grandfather's empire nearly crumbled because truth was treated as weakness. That ends today." Mr. Bello adjusted his glasses nervously. "And what exactly are you proposing, Miss Ayana?" "I'm not proposing," she said. "I'm declaring. From this day forward, Adewale Global will be rebuilt on transparency. No hidden contracts, no shadow partnerships. Anyone caught feeding corruption into this company will be exposed publicly, no matter their title." Her gaze swept across the room, unwavering. "I've seen what greed can do to a family. I won't let it destroy what's left of mine." For a moment, the room was silent. Then, one by one, they began to nod. Chief Adewale, seated quietly at the side, rose to his feet. "All in favor?" Every hand lifted. A small smile tugged at Ayana's lips. "Then we begin a new era." Hours later, as evening stretched across Lagos, Ayana visited her mother's grave, a quiet spot overlooking the ocean, white hibiscus flowers swaying in the breeze. She placed a bouquet of fresh ones on the marble stone. "Mom," she whispered, "it's done. They know now. The truth you died protecting. It's finally free." She knelt, the ocean wind catching her tears before they fell. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned to see Damilola standing at a respectful distance, hands in his pockets, face solemn. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I came to say goodbye," he replied quietly. "They cleared my name this morning. The files you released proved I wasn't the one who betrayed her. Akinwale blackmailed me into silence after Leah's death." "I've lived with that guilt for years." Ayana studied him, her anger softening into reluctant understanding. "And now?" "Now," he said, looking at the waves, "I disappear. Too many ghosts in this story." He turned to leave, but she called out, "Damilola, thank you, for trying to make it right." He paused, smiled faintly, and walked away into the dusk. That night, Ayana sat alone in her new office. The city lights glittered beyond the glass like stars trapped in a cage. She opened her laptop. Emails flooded in from global investors, news outlets, and strangers sending messages of admiration and support. Among them was one that made her heart skip. Sender, unknown. Subject, atonement. Body, I've surrendered to the authorities. Tell your grandfather I'm sorry. AA. Akinwale had been caught. Ayana leaned back in her chair, exhaling for what felt like the first time in years. She turned to the window, the night reflected in her eyes. Her voice broke the silence. "We did it, Mom." But then, as if in reply, her computer pinged again. One final message. From legal@aidwhaleglobal.com. Subject: Urgent. Hidden assets located. Offshore accounts under Leah Parker's name. She blinked, opening the attachment. Dozens of entries, numbered accounts, each signed by Leah Parker before her death. Ayana's hands shook. Her mother had hidden not just secrets, but wealth. Real, vast wealth. Money that could change lives, rebuild communities, transform the empire forever. She smiled faintly through her tears. You were always one step ahead, weren't you, Mom? The lights of Lagos glimmered beyond her office, and for the first time, Ayana felt peace. The war was over, not because she won it, but because she survived it without losing her soul. She stood, walked to the window, and whispered softly into the night, "May those who build on truth never fall." If you were in Ayana's place, after uncovering betrayal, surviving danger, and inheriting both power and pain, would you forgive your enemies or use your strength to rebuild from the ashes? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who believes truth always wins in the end.